There we go. So still waiting for a few more drivers to join, hopefully, as we try to get things kicked off and underway. We're going to do 18-minute short qualifying session, followed by a 50% race here on F1 23 on the PlayStation platform. And run down the driver lineup. We've got Sandro Julius in the Ferrari, followed by Senna Haywire, who will be rocking one of the Red Bulls today. Oleski and Jensen Randall both rocking the Aston Martins, and I'm pretty sure they've locked up the team championship as well as the driver championship already. George Wilkes will be in the Mercedes AMG Petronas, Robin Herterstegen in the McLaren, Ivan Brito in the other Mercedes, Noel and Nicolo Falzarezzi both in the Alfa Romeos. Bor Bune will be joining us today in the Haas, and Dion Stalls in the other Ferrari. We also have Tim Ventic and Nick Van Gelder on standby. Nick making it on time for a change. He'll be in the other Red Bull. And Tim Ventic, I believe, will be in the other Haas.
Tim's usually in an Alpine.
Alpine.
Expecting a few more at the very least. We'll give them usually a little bit of a grace period. Not too many more.
Another minute or so, and we'll be kicking things off. So coming off of the Mexico Grand Prix last time out, that was started off pretty hectic and then kind of smoothed its way out towards the middle and end part of the race. But kind of a similar setup to Miami, a couple of long straights and some really tight corners, and there's been some talk between the F1 fans. They would like to see the Miami track actually run through the Hard Rock Stadium, much like Mexico runs through their baseball stadium. So, but
feeling the Miami Dolphins might have something to say about that at a certain point as far as the condition of the field. Obviously, if they run in May, there's not much of an issue. But yeah, I mean, I guess it would be something. As someone who grew up in Florida when the Marlins first came, you know, I've always had a soft spot for what I always knew as Pro Player Stadium. But
yeah, way back in the way back.
Oh yeah, there's something about those spiraling. I'm not even sure what to call them, but those nice spirals in the corners out there. But may not be a pretty stadium, but it's one I have a fondness for, and I don't mind seeing the outside of it.
Well, for all intents and purposes, the track layout itself pretty much runs around the parking lot area of the stadium, which is still vast enough that it's made a halfway decent track. But there's always been there's been a little bit of controversy regarding the Miami Grand Prix in real life since its inception. It's not necessarily in Miami. You're not exactly running through downtown, temporary circuit. They've had the fake, water with the boats, and It's every year it seems to do something to separate itself from a normal Grand Prix, and not necessarily in a good way.
It is, I will say. It has one of the more fun sectors that I think is on the calendar. It's that same area that we saw Charles Leclerc go off in qualifying last season in that F1, the actual F1 league. But turns 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 coming around those. When you get it right, it feels fantastic. And then I think near the end, you have that chicane right before the big left-hander into the straight. I think that's also a tricky part to get right and satisfying when you do.
Well, and I think another factor, and I don't know how much this comes through in the actual game itself, but I do know that in real life, obviously, Miami, yes, it's only May, but it's still very hot. So tire temperatures and tire degradation has been a key factor over some of the seasons. And as somebody that lives in Central Florida, I can definitely attest to the fact it's pretty freaking nice right now. But a little bit further south, tire temperatures are going to go up. And I don't know if that comes through in the game or not, but we've seen tire issues play a factor in some of these races.
And I think also this being South Florida and a coastal area, there's a lot of rain that has happened. I think in PSGL qualifying a few months ago we saw rain, so I think this could be some a race maybe finally during this season of SRL where weather actually plays an impact. I think we've seen overcast races, some cloudy races, but nothing where I can remember drivers having to make an actual decision. Do I go inters? Do I go full wets? Do I stay on slicks? So I'm
Exactly. And
never wishing for rain, but it would spice things up today.
when rain came at the Mexican Grand Prix, but just after the checkered flag fell. So it was a little bit of a race against the weather, but not necessarily. The weather wasn't going to be a factor, unfortunately. And as they like to say, it is the great equalizer. So if rain does happen to fall upon us, maybe it would shake, as you say, spice things up a little bit moving forward. So it looks like we did get another driver. Shadow ends. I
It's
don't
going to be Peter
remember.
Nickel.
That's right, Peter Nickel and the
So we
other
saw,
Williams.
yeah, Peter Nickel making his debut, I want to say in Vegas in round 19. And I think a good debut. Just kind of ran into, I mean, everybody ran into some trouble at Vegas during that race.
Yes, Vegas was a bit chaotic, but Nickel did. He was very quick, actually, throughout most of that race. I believe he did run into some issues as well. Have not been taking notes this year because I have not been doing this every week as I used to do.
But it's really turning into a battle between the Brits and the Dutch out there. I feel like you look at all those flags. Obviously, the Britain, Jenson Randall has just kind of run riot, came in late into the season, not too late, a few races in, but has already locked up the driver championship. It did that, I think, at Singapore. And then with the strong finishes with his teammate, Koivuniemi, last week they wrapped up the Constructors' Championship, as you mentioned. So it's going to be a British champion this year, but you look up and down, you see the red, white, and blue of the Dutch flag. Borbunet's really come in the last few races looking very, very strong. Tim Ventink, always exciting to watch. You can't really predict where Ventink's going to be on the grid. Sometimes he's running top 5. Sometimes there's something that puts him near the back, and he has kind of a strong finish. And Dion Stahl, longest senior teammate with the Greek Sandro Dulis. I think Dion's always had steady, consistent races where just some kind of bad luck hits him maybe in that middle third or the start of the last third of the race. And Dion, I think Dion can get good points today, and I'm hoping Dion gets good points today. I think he's earned it at this point.
And it should also be noted we do have one current and 2 former champions in the grid. I mean, Jenson Randall, 3-time champion now at this point. Nick Van Gelder, season 4 champ. Tim Ventink, season 5 champ. So, if some of these guys, and as you said with Dion Stahl, one of the longest tenured drivers, if these guys could put together a complete race, there is some good points on the board to be picked up, especially with, looks like we're going to have a small driver count today. So points are going to definitely be up for grabs with the small car count.
Yeah, someone like Alexei Koivuniemi, I think, is he jumped up a spot over Logan Oren last week on the driver standings, and I think a good chance for him to really cement a top 3 finish for Koivuniemi. Nicola Falzaresi, with some strong finishes, has locked up P2, I think, at this point. But Sandro Dulis has been really consistent all year, just a lot of kind of like P4, P5, P6 finishes for him. I think he can also have a top 4 finish this year.
And we're getting ready to kick off the 18-minute short qualifying session. We'll back that up with the 50% race. And as I always say, short on car count does not mean short on track action. Kind of surprising given the 14 drivers. It's kind of surprising. Usually we have a few more drivers participate. Average car counts, you've been up around 18 cars this season. So, but let's get some track info up for everybody. We get lap data going, the track map, and there is good old Miami. You got that weird third sector. Yeah, I guess the end of Sector 2 and the beginning of Sector 3 with that goofy chicane, that hard left-hander heading out onto the straightaway.
It is also advantageous in this game, if not on the actual circuit on that chicane to really cut that chicane. I mean, they're sausage curbs, but if you just throw the car over them, you will save a few tenths compared to kind of doing it what would be considered the traditional way.
So the two Williams head out first. That is George Wilkes and Peter Nickel. Nickel jumps in front of his teammate to... I don't know if he wants to be the first one to start a hot lap or if he's going to try and give George Wilkes a little bit of a tow. See if he can help improve his time. See Bor Bunes coming out in the Haas. Nicolo Falzarezzi in the Alfa Romeo. And it looks like Nickel now is going to let George Wilkes go by. Maybe Nickel's the one that wants the slipstream.
Always surprising when someone beats Nicolo Falzarezzi out on track. He's usually the first one to come out of pit lane, but he at least has quite a bit of clean air in front of him.
And this is that very goofy, almost reminds me of the Singapore sling chicane when Singapore first became a track. That very odd chicane they had at the end of that. And that eventually just became a sweeping left-hander in recent years. So it looks like Peter Nickel is not worried about doing any type of slipstream teamwork with George Wilkes, as he's left him behind here on the back straightaway. So maybe he's just looking for clean air as he gets ready to start a hot lap. We'll hop on board with him and see where this goes down into turn one. Sweeps left, sweep right.
A little squirrely on that exit. You want to lift there, and then he almost loses it, just like Charles Leclerc did last year, as I mentioned. A very difficult section to get right there. Turns 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. Kind of a double apex at 7 and 8.
I know a lot of the drivers in real life have been complaining about some of the walls at the end of the track almost creating like an optical illusion. I guess tricking the eyes as to where the walls actually are in some regards. Does that become a factor in the actual game itself?
Yeah, I wonder, one thing I wish we could see is the camera each driver is using. I know some people insist on the TV pod camera, some are using cockpit. I can't imagine any of our drivers are using chase or anything like that, but certainly I would think some cameras are going to be better than others based on track and conditions.
That's actually a really good point. And Peter Nickel is the first driver to set a time at a 1:29.09. And Bor Bune immediately goes 1:28.6, so 0.4 of a second quicker. George Wilkes, 1:28 flat. And we'll pick up Nicolo Falzarezzi, and he just went 1:27.231.
Yeah, that's a great first lap from Nico. I was kind of expecting the target today, especially, Jensen Randall not going to qualify, but if Jensen were going to come in and really go all out, try and get that pole position, I was kind of expecting mid 126. So a 127.2 to start for Nicolo Falzarezzi is fantastic. It's only going to get faster from here.
And yeah, we should note with Jensen Randall locking up the championship back in Singapore, as you said earlier, he's elected to not qualify for the remaining rounds with the exception of Japan. And he will start from the back and work his way towards the front, which doesn't look like it's going to be too difficult today with only 14 cars. Currently watching Tim Ventic try and make his way around, and he's going to come across the line. And he looks like he's a little bit off the pace. 1:29.0, it's good enough for fourth right now, but as you said, times are probably going to be obviously mid 126s if Nicolo Falzarezzi's already run a 1:27.2. Pick up Noel in the other Sauber. He's currently in Sector 2. Caution flag flying in Sector 3, and you see Jensen Randall's retired from the session. As we said, he will start from the back.
Also, Abia, another driver just clanking over that chicane. Again, there's no reason to take it uh, by actually avoiding those sausage curves. You just save so much from the car in a straight line. Yes, you're bouncing around, but hey, you're not feeling it like the drivers at the actual Miami circuit would.
And meanwhile, 127.995 for Sandro Dulius, good enough for second so far. Continue to ride along with Noel, and he's going to come across the line with 128.688, good enough for fifth. And pick up Dion Stahl. He's coming down the back straightaway. He's yet to set a time.
Miami, meanwhile, getting a P2, 127.8 on his first lap.
Bit of a wiggle for Dion Stahl coming out of the corner, and he's going to come across the line. 128.752, good enough for seventh quickest.
I think the gaps in the qualifying time so far showing how difficult a track this is to get exactly right. The first sector and that last area with the chicane coming into the straight in sector 3, it's the sort of thing where the mistakes are easy to make, and each one's going to add a couple tenths to your lap time, and I think that's why you see the big difference, even just from Paltrezzi to Cognemi, half a second. It does not take much to lose time on this track.
We just saw Ivan Brito. Looks like he's made a mistake in the Charles Leclerc section of the track. Ivan Brito yet to make set a time. He invalidated his previous lap time. He's trying to set one this time by, but he made that mistake at the Charles Leclerc section, as I call it. But still on the gas, trying to see if he can at least put a time on the board. And I did see a notification Noel had left the session. I don't know if he's having internet issues. Car is still in game. And Ivan Brito really tiptoeing through this chicane here, out on the back straightaway.
Purple sector for Ivan Brito, okay. Lap old tires, and he's finding some pace somewhere.
I mean, I thought he was going a little slow, but...
You know, at purple sector too, we don't know what happened. I don't know.
Whoa, big wiggle there, trying to get the power down, and he's going to abandon the lap. Thought he might have had something going there. So it looks like we'll pick up Board Bune. Looks like he's the only one out on track right now, trying on a hot lap. Currently in sector 1. He's 2/10 up his previous time, but he is 6/10 off of George Wilkes' time for 4th. So he's got a lot of work cut out for him to try and improve his position.
Let's see how he takes the chicane here. There you go. So the first part, really aggressive. The second part avoided the sausage. I mean, it can unsettle the car if you're looking for an improvement. If you know you're improving, and he is, 1/10.5, I guess you want to play it safe.
That really is that's a really weird chicane. Yeah, that is, I said it earlier, but that is very reminiscent of the Singapore sling chicane when Singapore first came out. That's just weird, but he does improve his time, a 128.421. Still only 5th quickest, though.
And the man in front of him, George Wilkes, has improved by 6/10.
Oh, but he's invalidated his lap time. That was going to be something if that was going to keep on going. So Tim Ventick just starting a hot lap as he heads into turn 1, and a caution flag flies in sector 3. I believe that's for George Wilkes. Just slow on the track right now. 7:45 left to play in the session, and your provisional pole sitter is Nicolo Falzaresi, 127.231, currently on an out lap. Riding along with Tim Ventick, your Season 5 champion, to see if he can improve his time, currently only 8th quickest. And he is 2/10 up on his previous time. He'd be cutting it close to getting 7th over Dion Stahl right now.
He's actually got Dion Stahl just about half of that straight behind him, so Dion Stahl could also be improving here.
Oh, and he's invalidated his lap time, jumping the sausage curb at the chicane. So no bueno.
So clearly each driver aware of what I'm aware of, and that's that, you know, hopping that chicane, jumping that chicane really can save you quite a bit. But I think if you get a little too much air, all four tracks or all four tires leave the track, it's easy to invalidate too.
So we're going to pick up Oleski. He is just now starting a hot lap, heads down into turn 1. 6/10 off of the provisional pole set by Nicolo Falzaresi.
I'm expecting a few tenths improvement here for Flavio Niemi.
He's being super aggressive right now, but at the same time, super smooth, a little wide coming out of that corner. And he has abandoned the lap. So he'll come around and try it again. Meanwhile, Sandro Dulius, he's coming through the same section that Oleski was just at. He's 2/10 up on his best time. That would jump him above Oleski into second. He's going to pass Oleski down this back straightaway.
Yeah, what an awkward spot to have to overtake a car on a qualifying lap. It's such a tricky braking point coming into turn 11 there.
Through the chicane. And Noel, once again, has left the session. So I'm assuming he's having some internet issues. And we got a caution flag flying in Sector 2. And Dion Stahl's car has been retired. So he must have had an off and binned it.
Yeah, I believe that was, you want to hug turn 12 really tightly. And sometimes you can be a little too tight.
And here comes Sandro across the line. A 1:27.919. Only good enough for third. Nicolo Falzaresi improves his time, 1:26.992. And Oleski.
I think if you're Nico, you can go to pit lane. I don't know that anyone's going to touch 126 with you.
So we're going to jump on board with Oleski again. He's just starting another hot lap. He was real slow coming around the track trying to save those tires for this hot run here. Whoa, and he almost loses the back end. That was some Nick Van Gelder's driving action right there, swinging that back end out.
Yeah, that's that early section there after start finish, coming out of turn 1 into turn 2. You really want to hook the curve to make turn 3 an optimal entry, but that curve is very slippery on turn 2.
Nick Van Gelder, I don't know if Nick has a qualifying ban. He's been in the pits. He's yet to set a time. I don't know if he's just going to wait and try and make a one-lap effort of it, but no time set by Van Gelder.
Yeah, so it is a qualifying ban for Nick Van Gelder after the finish. At the last round, we saw Jensen Randall cross-start finish with a win in reverse, but Nick Van Gelder was deemed a intentional crash across start finish.
I see. I must have missed that in the stewards meeting. So Oleski coming out of the corner, and he's going to abandon the lap, unfortunately. So no time set there by Oleski. We've got Noel's on an out lap, Tim Ventic on an out lap. Now Peter Nickel currently 10th. He's trying to set a time coming down the back straightaway.
Peter Nickel was a 10th slower than his current lap, but this is a big area to gain time. Well, he might have tagged the wall a little bit there. He did. That's an invalidation. So,
and he is retired from the session.
Yeah, I don't blame him. Not really enough time to get through again. It is a street circuit. There are walls, but you can still go what's considered, you know, outside track limits, even without making contact with the wall. So you don't want to necessarily hug every wall everywhere. which Peter Nickel learned there the hard way.
And I'm currently watching Senna Haywire. He's going to come across the line. 9th quickest. Improves his position and his time, so jumps into the points. Well, not really a points-paying position during qualifying, but up into 9th. And
Senna coming out of turn 3 again. We've seen a lot of wiggles out of turn 2 and turn 3, so I think maybe something to keep an eye on during the actual race.
And that was right in front of Tim Ventic, who's on a hot lap. Currently 10th quickest, so Senna just jumped him with his qualifying effort and then gets in the way. I don't know that it ruined Tim's lap. He's still on the gas. He's got 2 more cars in front of him as he's coming down the sweeping left dogleg straightaway. I don't know what to call that.
Ventic was even a purple sector 1, even with Nick Van Gelder kind of. I mean, it really could have been a lot worse for Van Gelder coming out of turn 2 and 3. He really clanged into the wall pretty good. But a purple sector 1 for Venting. He's about to wrap up sector 2. We'll see if he's got more improvement. Oh my gosh, what an improvement. Almost a second for Venting so far.
Man, Tim Ventic is on a tear, 9/10 of a second up over his previous time. That would jump him a number of positions if he can keep up this momentum.
He was the beneficiary of some slipstreams at some crucial points. I mean, he had the Aston, he had the Salver, he had the Williams all on the straight there.
And here he goes from 10th to 5th, 128 flat for Tim Ventic in the Season 5 champion, showing everybody he's still got a little bit of championship form left in him. Meanwhile, George Wilkes has jumped up to 4th. Sandro still in 3rd as he is on a hot lap as well. And time is winding down, the last 10 seconds of the qualifying session. So hot laps will count. 126.992 is the provisional pole set by Nicola Falzaresi, and he's the only driver to crack into the 126s.
George Wilkes on sector 1, another purple sector, and it was 4/10 improvement, but he just invalidated coming into turns 11 and 12.
So George Wilkes is essentially out of it. Oleski and Sandro Dooley is still trying to see. Oh, and Sandro just hit the wall at the chicane. He is going to be done. We'll try to pick up Oleski.
And there is going to be damage that Clay Nami's going to have to drive through. We saw, I think it was Nick Van Gelder get a puncture from wing debris on the track. Looks like the game may have despawned it, so that's good.
He's still going to have the wounded car of Sandro. Sandro will probably be at the pits. Purple sector 2 for Oleski.
Well, what that tells you is since Koivuniemi only had less than a 10th of improvement after a purple sector 2, Falzaresi is really finding his time in the 1st and 3rd sectors. So a very tricky 1st sector. Falzaresi, a very talented driver. I wonder if he's running maybe a little bit higher of a wing. And sacrificing some of the top-end speed for the straights.
And a 127.681. So that locks him in for 2nd for sure. And that is going to do it for qualifying. That's unfortunate for Sandro. He was on a good tear, but clipped that wall. He was really trying to cut that first curb at the chicane like you had been saying. If you can get away with that, it kind of sets you up a little bit better. But man, tough break for Sandro. But Nicola Falzaresi with another pole position. Oleski starting in 2nd. Sandro Doolius, despite the damage, he'll be starting in 3rd. Bor Bune up to 4th. George Wilkes is 5th. Tim Ventic will be starting 6th. Ivan Brito will be starting 7th. Noel is 8th. Dion Stahl 9th. Senna Haywire will be starting in the 10th position. Peter Nickel 11th. Robin Herderstag in 12th. Jensen Randall will be starting in the 13th position. He did not set a time. And then Nick Van Gelder had a qualifying ban, so no time set for him. So realistically, there's some points on the board to be grabbed with only 14 drivers in today's race. So we just got done doing the 18-minute short qualifying session. We're going to see how the 50% race goes, whether not a factor so far. I see what you're saying with those Hard Rock Stadium, with those 4 pillars and the spiraling ramps.
Yeah, that's kind of in the infield here. Sandwiched by sectors 3 and sectors 1. I don't know that it's too visible during the actual race, but that is where the paddock is. It's part of the stadium.
Well, I can tell you here in real life, Central Florida is beautiful today. So there's no rain on my radar.
Yeah, pretty stormy in Texas, but hopefully wherever anyone's watching, it's better weather than here. But looks like clear skies for the game, so unless there's something that rolls in later in the race, it's going to be another at least nominally easy strategy day for these drivers. They're not going to have to make too many hard decisions.
We'll start with the formation lap. Once again, Niccolo Falzaresi on pole with Oleski starting behind him. Sandro Dulius, good qualifying effort, starting in third. And as you said, you know, it's been pretty consistent all year. Third, fourth, fifth, sixth. He's definitely racked up some points. Owner of the league, but he's never won a championship in his own league. Borbune will be starting in fourth with George Wilkes behind him. Good to see the Williams running that high up. Too bad we can't get that in real life. Season 5 champion Tim Ventic starting in the 6th position. And Ivan Brito, fan favorite, starting in the 7th spot. And Noel's been having some internet issues. He's disconnected from the sessions a couple of times during qualifying. We'll see if that becomes a factor in today's race. Dion Stahl starting in the 9th position. And Senna Haywire, actually a good qualifying effort for him, starting in the 10th spot. Peter Nickel, honestly, I expected a little bit more out of him because he's performed so well in a few outings that he's had this year, starting in the 11th spot. Robin Herterstegen, long-tenured driver here at SRL, starting in 12th. Jensen Randall will be doing the back-to-front challenge. And Nick Van Gelder will be starting in the 14th spot. He had a qualifying ban. And that is going to do it for 14 drivers today. So short on car count does not mean short on on-track action. I'm sure this will be plenty of stuff going on throughout the course of this race.
Everyone on medium except Robin Herjstadhagen. So this is maybe the most uniform start we've had in terms of tire selection. It is, as you mentioned earlier during qualifying, this can be a tough race on the tires. But still, you know, with, I think, the way qualifying went, we saw a lot of guys lose control. I'm a little surprised no one went soft spanking on an early safety car.
That would have been an interesting strategy. Robin Herterstegen, the one lone driver, will be starting on the hard tires. Waiting for the cars to line up. And it looks like we're waiting for Peter Nickel to get in position. So wait for the 5 red lights. Lights out. Time to run what you brung. They're waiting a puff of smoke. Good start by Sandro Dulius. Gets a good jump. But so does Oleski. And Oleski's going to try and get to the inside of Niccolo Falzaresi. Can't make it happen. Got some shuffling going on in the back. Looks like one of the Williams is off. Just a quick on-off and back on. Looks like that was George Wilkes. And Borbune to the outside, inside of Sandro Dulius. Can't make it work.
Wow, that was kind of a dangerous idea for Borbune. I've seen what looks like a little bit of contact for both Koivuniemi and now Dulius. The left side of those tires, this is, you know, primarily a track where they're making lefts, so the lefts are going to last a little bit longer than the right side of the tires.
And Oleski is going to try and sweep around the outside of Falzaresi, and that is really tight racing. And Oleski's going to get the spot for now, but I don't think Falzaresi's going to give it up that easily. He's definitely going to be coming back as they head through the chicane here. Meanwhile, it looks like Jensen Randall has worked his way up into 7th already. And slipstream for Falzaresi. He's going to try and make a move. Oleski's going to take the more defensive line. Falzaresi's going to have to go to the outside. A little bit of side drafting going on. Oh, and Sandro late on the brakes that time. Dove it in there hard, lost a little bit of ground on the exit, though.
Yeah, that was interesting. It looked like Niemi just kind of parked on the apex there. It looked like he was really slowing it down, knew he had position, wanted to keep Falzaresi back, maybe let Sandro battle with him.
Meanwhile, George Wilkes has gotten around Borbune for the 4th position. Borbune trying to come back, do the crossover move. Swings to the outside, tucks back in.
Oh, Borbune loses it. Comes back on track. He lost a couple positions, so that was, again, I think that was coming out of turns 2 and 3, battling with someone, dirty air, not going to have the aero he needs.
And that is going to move Jensen Randall up into the 6th position. Meanwhile, Nick Van Gelder, who started dead last, has worked his way up into 9th. He just got around Dion Stahl, and now he's bringing Senna Haywire with him, and looks like Dion's lost 2 positions here in a couple of corners to the Red Bulls.
Falzaresi gets back past Koivuniemi. It was after that turn 11 and turn 12, so pretty much where Koivuniemi took the lead from Nico at the last race. A little bit of contact, tire to tire. I think in F1 that's considered more acceptable than other types of racing leagues out there. But Falzaresi back in the lead here, coming down the main straight.
So 1st through 6th are all pretty much running with each other at this point. DRS will be available come this lap. And Falzaresi sets the fastest lap of the race, and then Jensen Randall quickly defeats that. So Jensen's coming. He's a part of this 6-car train. DRS is now enabled according to race control. So Jensen will be the biggest benefactor of this. And he is already all over the back of Tim Ventic as he's going to dive underneath of him here and take the 5th position away from him.
Yeah, Venting was battling. He was trying to prevent that. You saw the DRS light flashing, so Tim was really deploying there, wanting to keep Jensen behind him as long as he could.
And now Jensen's going to probably make easy work of George Wilkes. Dives to the inside of Wilkes. He's going to take that position, and he is up into 4th. Tiptoeing through the chicane.
Now a really long straight here.
And he should be able to make easy work of Sandro, even though it's a bit of a DRS train. Sandro's he's a little further back, so he's not going to really get a whole lot of effect on that DRS.
I didn't even see the wing. Yeah, I didn't see the wing open for Sandro, so I don't even know if he had DRS down that straight.
That's weird, because on my screen it was open.
Oh, really?
A little bit of lag, maybe, but it looks like it doesn't matter because Jensen is going to get around the outside heading into turn 1 and take over the 3rd spot. So Jensen Randall started 13th up into 3rd, and we got a caution flag flying in sector 1, and looks like that might be, oh, that's Tim Ventic. Looks like he's had an issue. He's gone around. He's doing the Austin Powers, trying to get the car turned back around, and looks like Robin Herterstegen might have had a problem as well. He's in the pits. And he's switched over to medium tires.
Turns 2 and 3. I mean, I thought it would be that Leclerc section, 4, 5, 6, 7, but it's turns 2 and 3 that are really getting people to kind of just lose grip. It's a tricky course because some curbs will just completely take away your grip, and then some don't seem to affect it. There are a lot of painted curbs, but not all painted curbs here are created equal.
Yeah, it sounds weird, but there's some inconsistencies in the curbing where, most tracks, like if you go to like Hungary, to stay off the curbs, especially at like turn 5. Other tracks, Suzuka, you can pretty much use the curbs to no disadvantage. Here it's kind of a crapshoot. Jensen Randall does get around Aleski for the 2nd position, and now sets his sights on Nicolo Falzaresi, who is 1.3 seconds ahead, but that gap is diminishing rather quickly.
I'm not sure how it is Jensen's finding all this pace, especially in the first sector, but this is where he's doing his damage. These sweeping lefts and rights. Maybe he's keeping it under control. Maybe he's pushing it to the limit and hasn't passed the limit yet. But Jensen he's found half a second in this first sector, which is a purple sector for him, as he hunts down Nicola Falzaresi.
And it looks like, Senna Haywire is binned it somewhere. And we've got ourselves, looks like, it says caution 1 and 2 on my car or my screen, but it looks like we've got ourselves down to at least a virtual safety car, possibly a full safety car.
No, I think that was in the Leclerc section because Tim Ventink and Peter Nickel really had been impacted quite a bit coming around turns 7 and 8, so not sure what happened. I'm sure when you check back in with SRL's YouTube channel on Wednesday, you'll have some onboards to elucidate.
So virtual safety car, and we're back to green flag racing, and it looks like Oleski caught Sandro, maybe Sandro napping. Sandro's trying to get back to the inside and take that position away. They're side by side coming out of the corner. Oh, and Sandro's going to give it up.
Or is he? He's got DRS.
Around the outside. The outside's going to become the inside.
Oh.
Oleski's going to have to cut the corner. George Wilkes is going to go with Sandro, and Oleski is going to get the short end of the stick on that one. Loses a couple of positions.
Yeah, that was a rough restart from the VSC for Alexei Koivuniemi. It was right on that big braking coming into turn 17. It was perfectly timed for Falzaresi and Randall, and about the worst it could be for Koivuniemi.
Meanwhile, Jensen Randall to the inside of Falzaresi. Down the dog leg straight away. Going to make that move easily. Falzaresi's going to try and keep it tight to the inside, but it's not going to work, and he's going to have to concede the position. Falzaresi drops back to second. Jensen Randall, your new leader.
Yeah, turn 11's been the real overtaking spot for the race so far. It's surprising. It's such a difficult braking zone. It's kind of a blind left-hander that's uphill a little bit, but I expected more right here. Maybe Nico's going to take it right back this long straight, but turn 11, that's where everything's happening.
Meanwhile, Sandro and George Wilkes battling it out for the third position. Sandro's going to give the DRS advantage on that and take that position away from George Wilkes. Meanwhile, Oleski trying to come back and be a part of this battle. And it looks like we've had an issue. Noel, Nick Van Gelder, and Borbune, they're all kind of shuffling positions. Van Gelder to the inside. And it looks like he's going to take away the sixth position from Borbune. Borbune trying to come back.
This is about as far down the grid as we've seen Borbune in his races so far this season. Lately, he's been really in kind of that top 5 battle, 3, 4, 5, I think, as we saw in the last round. So a little surprising to see Borbune here in P7 with Nick Van Gelder and Ivan Brito sandwiching him, but maybe there's still time to gain for Borbune.
And George Wilkes just had an issue and off track, and now Nick Van Gelder and Borbune is making it a 3-car battle as they split George Wilkes 3 wide down the straightaway.
This is dangerous.
So I don't know, George Wilkes, I just picked up the action. Wilkes was off, and now Borbune trying to take that position. So he jumps up into 5th. Meanwhile, Ivan Brito battling it out with Noel for the 8th position. Brito loses out on that. And actually, back to the front, Nicola Falzaresi's making a move on Jensen Randall for the top spot. Oh, my goodness, and cuts across the nose of Jensen Randall and takes that position away. Falzaresi back out in front. And look at this. We've got drops of rain here in Miami.
And this track can really come back to bite you if you don't pit at the right time. So this is going to get very interesting. It doesn't look like heavy rain yet, but there are obviously drops on screen coming down.
Meanwhile, George Wilkes and Nick Van Gelder have been swapping spots corner for corner now. The battle for 5th is wide open, and the rain's starting to come down. So who's going to be the first driver to pit?
Be curious to see Jensen Randall. He's right on the diffuser of Niccolo Falzaresi, but as he starts to lose grip, both with aging medium tire compound and slicks on what looks like a wet track, this could get messy. He does get the overtake done.
And he's got the DRS. I mean, good on Falzaresi taking that position back. I mean, usually once Jensen Randall gets out in front, it's clean sailing for him, and that's usually a race for second. But right now, Falzaresi trying to hang tough. Rain's going to be a factor, obviously.
There's got to be something with the wing setup that's different for Jensen because, again, he's finding all the time in Sector 1. And then usually on this straight, maybe it's because he gets the overtake done on Sector 1. Falzaresi's been able to get DRS and slipstream, so...
Yeah, because it looks like Falzaresi is coming back, even with the DRS. Starting to see a little bit of spray coming off of the back of Jensen Randall's car. Falzaresi almost loses the back end. And you can definitely see it is now getting wet for sure. And it looks like some of these guys are going to head into the pits. Does anybody gamble and try to stay out just a tick longer?
Be interesting to check a little farther back to see now that, yeah, it looks like it is just about everyone. I was going to check on Bune, who's been battling.
Oh, and DRS is disabled, so the rain has come down heavy enough to take out the DRS.
There is not a single person brave enough to stay out there. Peter Nickel coming in, Tim Vintink coming in, Robin Herstadhagen. He's got quite a bit of track before he can pit, so hopefully Robin Herstadhagen is able to get to the pit lane without too much of an incident on those slicks.
So we've got them switched over to intermediates. Let's see if we can... Yeah, it looks like everybody's gone with enters so far. And a 3-second time penalty for Dion Stahl. Well, no SRL race is complete without a Dion Stahl time penalty. So now it becomes, you know, does it keep raining? Do we see a switch over to full wets? Does it dry out? Do we see a switch back to slicks?
This is good. I mean, this is Nico's keeping it really competitive with Jensen. I'm happy to see that there is a new wrinkle, and it's not going to be just an easy Sunday drive for Jensen Randall here.
Well, that's going to be a factor of who's the better wet weather driver. So Jensen Randall stretching that out just a little bit right now. 1.8 seconds back. Falzaresi not giving up on it.
Sandro... I think given the pace that Jensen Randall has found, especially in Sector 1, I have a feeling Jensen Randall is running a higher wing, which is going to be a huge benefit to him in the rain. So, you know, based on the lap times in the purple sectors we've seen from Jensen earlier, I think he has a car set up for rain.
Meanwhile, Sandro Dolia solidly in the third position at this point. He's 5 seconds behind Falzaresi and 2.5 seconds in front of Aleski. Closest battle on track right now is still between Bune and Nick Van Gelder for the 7th spot. And these guys, since they've gotten together, they haven't been able to separate from each other. And this is right up Van Gelder's alley. He likes a loose handling race car. He doesn't mind the wet.
Ooh, and some snaps. Yeah, you can really hear Nick Van Gelder lifting going into turn 1. I think hoping throttle control and not having to brake is the answer for him.
You can really hear him dragging the wheels through some of these gears and trying to get some traction down. And it looks like these guys are actually catching George Wilkes, who's running in 5th, but he just lost a big chunk of time to these guys. And the rain, it does seem it's pretty consistent.
No standing puddles visible yet anywhere on track. I think that's the point where you have to really consider going to the wet compound. But as you mentioned earlier, right before everybody started pitting, there's a lot of spray out there. And the battle continues between Bune and
Nick Van Gelder. Borbune a little bit. Borbune's better at coming out of the corner, while Nick is better at getting into the corner. A bit of a yo-yo right now between the times.
Oh, Nick! You saw the opposite lock there, Nick. Keeps it on track, well done, but that was a little nervy moment for him, I'm sure.
Meanwhile, Falzarezzi has lost touch with Jenson Randall. He's now 3.2 seconds back.
Yeah, checking in with Jenson, it looks like he's just out there. It almost looks like a practice session for him. He looks calm, collected, very cool, keeping the car exactly where he wants it to be and maintaining that interval over Falzarezzi. But Falzarezzi, again, making up a few tenths here on the straight. So I think just car setup, it's the straights that Nico wants.
Sorry, I'm riding on board with Nick, and he's
yeah,
playing a dangerous game with the wall.
It's fun. I like to go just on board with Nick Van Gelder, especially coming out of this turn 17. I think it's going to be really fun is watching him go into Sector 1. I can hear the tires squealing, braking for that turn as I'm on board with him.
Yeah, this has been an interesting battle so far. You know, as I said, it seems like Borbune's better at coming out of the corner. Nick's a little bit better going into the corner. He's trying to stay a gear up and roll the throttle a little bit to not break traction. But there's a couple of spots where he gets a little throttle happy.
Yeah, right there you can tell a little nervy on the painted curb in the rain. That's exactly where we saw Leclerc go into the barrier last year. So Nick really pushing it to the limit here. It's always great when there's water on the track because you can see the line the car in front of him is taking versus the line he's on. Wow, he's...
This is the closest he's been coming out of this corner to Borbune. Oh, you see he's getting excited. He's trying to get that power down. I mean, with no DRS, it's a catch-22. You want to get that slipstream, but you got to fight the spray off of the car in front. But this is the closest he's been to Borbune. Kind of backs off. He's kind of setting himself up.
Well, also Abia starting to close in on even Vito right behind this battle.
That battle's about 6 seconds behind this one. Ivan Brito currently running in the 8th position. Nick, it's a good turn 1. Oh!
Just a little too much curb.
And Nick, I feel like he's thinking about it.
Well, if you're Borbune, I hope you have the virtual rear view turned off. I know most drivers have it on, but I would hate to see Nick Van Gelder behind me in the rain, just side to side so much. I would start to get a little distracted.
You know, under normal driving conditions, and Ivan Brito picks up a 3-second time penalty. Under normal driving conditions, the virtual rear view isn't that bad, but it's nerve-wracking for me in the rain because you don't have the confidence in the driver behind you to not plow into the back of you if he loses traction. You know, in the dry, the braking points are kind of similar, but in the wet, you know, depending on how good of a wet driver you are, it can vary. And this is now the closest Nick has been. Oh, dragging the wheels. Gets a couple upshifts, and here he goes. He's making the move on Borbune.
Yeah, it kind of looked like Borbune maybe clanged into the wall coming out of turn 16, and that opened the door here for Nick Van Gelder, who gets the overtake done, but can he get it to stick?
That was... Whoa.
We can just have a supercut of Nick Van Gelder slightly losing it.
And this is how I was introduced to Nick back in like season 4 at Spa, doing the same thing in the wet. I mean, just sliding the car around. He was the resident Ken Block that day, just doing what he does. And here he is once again, showing some incredible car control. Meanwhile,
Even Brito,
while that was all going on,
there must have been damage. I think we saw the 3-second penalty for Brito. We saw he had been battling with Noah Rosso Avia. That battle quickly ended as Even lost a lot of time, so there must have been some damage for Even Brito.
So fresh set of intermediates, it looks like. And the rain has not let up, so I'm interested to see if anybody at a certain point decides that full wets might be the way to go. Because we're only halfway through this race. The intermediates are not going to last. Meanwhile, we have Tim Ventic now getting around Dion Stahl for the 9th position. Oh, he goes very deep, though. Blows the corner. Dion's going to take that position back.
I am starting to see puddles right here where Tim Ventic is coming into, I believe that's turn 13 right before the chicane. So definitely standing puddles. You might be right. They could be approaching time for a tire change.
Whoa, and Tim.
Whoa, Tim.
And that's what I was talking about with that virtual rear view. That's what I'm talking about right there. I mean, amazing to stop the car from plowing into the back of Dion. Almost pulled the Lance Stroll on Daniel Ricciardo, but managed to save it.
Good awareness from Dion Stahl to, if not see that with the rear view, then sense it. I mean, it's unfortunate you lose a position, you lose some time, but it's better than getting plowed into.
Meanwhile, Borbune now is all over the gearbox of Nick Van Gelder, trying to get that 6th position back from him. So it'll be interesting to ride along with Borbune to see what he does a little differently than Nick to try and get this position back.
Bune's definitely staying right in the slipstream, although he's going to go for the overtake coming into turn 11. This is going to be dangerous in the rain. Oh, and now you see Borbune out in the area of track that's got more water on it. It's not the racing line, so he lost time going for that overtake into turn 11.
Well, he's going to be right all over the back of Nick Van Gelder. This is when Van Gelder made the move on to him. Van Gelder gets a good exit out of the corner, and Borbune loses a bunch of ground to him. But look, he is catching up, as you said, using as much slipstream as possible. Whoa, Nick! Oh, he
Nick
saves it.
Jeez. Oh, he's still sliding. So I think if you're Borbune, going for the overtake on that tricky turn 11, 12, 13 in the chicane, that's maybe a little bit too much. You're going to have a nice straight. You're going to be in a slipstream that doesn't affect your downforce to a point where you're going to lose control. And that was just a clean overtake. Taking advantage of a mistake by Nick Van Gelder, who I would love to see the onboards for Nick Van Gelder after the race.
Well, I think Nick's tires have probably reached a point. We know Nick is not the easiest driver on his tires, and we've seen how much sliding around he's done trying to get that position from Borbune. So his rear tires are probably in much worse shape than Borbune's were. But look, he's come back. He's come back that quick. And oh my goodness, I mean, it's just all over the gearbox. Side by side as they head into the left-hander. Whoa!
I don't know how these two are still driving with cars that are in shape to drive.
Nick is... I don't know where Nick finds all this opposite lock in this car. He takes the position at the chicane of all places. It's not even a passing area, but I guess it can be in the wet. And now Borbune all over the back of him.
Also, Avia has gained 4 seconds on these two just from all this action in front of him. Alexei Koivuniemi has gone into the pit lane.
Let's see if Oleski switches over to the full wets. I imagine that these guys are going to have to start doing it. Oh, and here we go. Borbune outside, trying to do the crossovers. Van Gelder. And these guys are going to go around one more time before anybody decides to pit. They're side by side.
A lot of standing puddles. I think Koivuniemi was 100% spot on to go to the wets. I'm curious to see how much time is he going to gain.
Oh, and he's coming out in this battle. Oh, my goodness.
Boy.
He came out right next to these guys. I don't even think they knew it. And luckily, he's got full wet, so Oleski's going to be able to pull away just a little bit.
I think this gap between Koivuniemi and Van Gelder is going to really tell the story on wets versus inters right now. Of course, Van Gelder's still paddling Borbune, and Razo Avia is in the same shot as these two finally. He has gained 5 seconds due to these two battling.
Yes, this has now become a 3-car battle, and Borbune is not giving up to the outside.
Oh.
This battle for 6th has been unbelievable, and this has been going on for laps at this point. Oh my goodness, Nick!
Oh. So Razo Avia now is the one battling. Borbune is probably thinking, thank God, no, Razo Avia has caught up to Nick Van Gelder. Everyone's starting to pit now, so Koivuniemi getting out there a lap early. Let's see what kind of undercut he's got with the wet compound.
I'm going to stick with the Van Gelder for just until they hit the pits.
So I believe Koivuniemi went in P3. Jensen Randall already on his way out, but Falzaresi, Sandro Delis.
And Nick Van Gelder's going to pit. Borbune is actually staying out. So Van Gelder and Noel come into the pits. Borbune stays out. Oleski currently running in 4th. And yeah, Jensen Randall, Falzaresi, and Sandro Julius all pitted for fresh wets. And Borbune stays out. Peter Nichols stays out. Ivan Brito pitted a few laps ago because he had an incident. Unfortunately, put on a fresh set of intermediates. He's now heading back into the pits again. And Robin Herterstegen is on some old intermediates as well. So Oleski was the first one to make the pit onto the wets. Unfortunately, didn't garner him a whole lot of positions. He's up to 4th.
He's at least gaining a couple of tenths here compared to Sandro Dulis. But his tires will be ready. He goes very wide on the exit of turn 11, though, so that's going to compromise things.
So Nick Van Gelder just lost the spot to Noel for the 7th position, and we've got a 3-car battle now for the 7th spot. Noel, Nick Van Gelder, and Tim Ventic. And this is going to become a battle for essentially what is 6th. This Nick makes the move, cuts him off.
And some love taps between all three. Razo Avia into the back end of Van Gelder, which then causes Tim Venting to go into the back end of Razo Avia.
And Borbune, I think he's going to be the only driver left on the intermediates. So battle for 6th is actually battle for 7th, I should say, because George Wilkes is currently running in the 6th position. But Borbune is going to give up a number of spots because he's going to have to come in for wets. There's no way he can stay out on old intermediates. Just look how hazy it is and foggy. And you can see all the standing water. Tim Ventic is going to...
Oh my gosh.
Almost loses the car. Great save. Meanwhile, Van Gelder around the outside. The crossover move from Tim Ventic. And now they're side by side as they head down the front straightaway into turn 1. Borbune has pitted. Nick Van Gelder is the only guy I've seen lock up all 4 wheels and make a corner. Here comes Borbune to be a part of this battle. So now it's going to be a 4-car battle for the 6th position. Peter Nichols losing. He's battling it out with Ivan Brita for the 11th spot deeper in the field. And Nick Van Gelder up into 6th. You can see the weather is coming down. Tim Ventic. So Season 4 champion Nick Van Gelder running in 6th. Season 5 champion Tim Ventic running in 7th. Noel currently running in 8th. And Borbune is now going to be a part of this battle as well.
I'm shocked we haven't seen a safety car yet with as many near misses as we've seen. I'm also a little shocked Borbune went in for a fresh set of inters, so he must be he's cooking. He's found something in the inters no one else seems to be able to see, I guess.
That is actually super interesting. I didn't even think about that. I assumed when he pitted, he was going to pit for full wets like everybody else. Maybe, is he preparing himself for the changeover in the other direction?
It doesn't seem like the weather's letting up. At this point, we have 9 or so laps left. I don't know how quickly it's going to dry out. But if it does stop raining, I mean, there's enough tires on circuit that maybe Borbune's banking on something happening here in the last few laps.
So things have settled just a little bit. Nick Van Gelder has about a half a second gap over Tim Ventic, who's got an 0.8 of a second gap over Noel, who's got an almost second gap over Borbune. And be interesting to know if that was by design to do the intermediates, or if he made a mistake and wanted to do full wets.
With the gap he's got over Dion Stahl for, P9, 8.5 seconds here, I kind of like this from Borbune. If it works out for him, and everyone in front eventually has to switch over, with the exception of maybe Jensen Randles because he has 13 seconds on Nicola Falzaresi. But if everyone in front eventually has to pit, Borbune could gain easily four positions here, just looking ahead. He could easily slot into P6, maybe even P5, depending on what he could gain before everybody finally switches over.
Meanwhile, Tim Ventic is still trying to find a way around Nick Van Gelder in the Red Bull. Here they go through the chicane, over the sausage curb. And this is where Tim's been trying. He's really been trying to make the move down this straightaway, but you get offline and there's just so much standing water off the traditional racing line. He hasn't really been able to find the traction to try and make the move and make it stick. Now he's going to try and go side by side with them. Oh! And Tim's going to make it happen this time. Nick almost... Did they make contact? Did he hit the wall?
I think Van Gelder might have clipped the wall there. He didn't lose too much time, but he did lose a position. But if you're Tim Ventic, you're not in the clear.
Van Gelder back to the inside. And they're still side by side through the first 3 corners. Now Nick's going to take it back. And honestly, if I'm Noel or Borbune right now, I'm just biding my time. I'm just going to hold my position because chances are something is going to happen. Oh, but Noel's going to try and run up the rear of Tim Ventic. And Ventic to the outside. It looks like Van Gelder clipped the wall again. He's going to lose a couple of positions. And now Noel is up into the 7th spot. Tim Ventic is 6, but here comes Nick Van Gelder again. Back to the inside to take back both positions he just lost.
Oh.
An unbelievable drive by these guys. And they're rubbing. Here comes Noel. He's going to be 3. Well, you can't go 3 wide through this corner. It's never going to work.
Yeah, that was a really shallow entry for Nick Van Gelder, so I was already kind of clenching my teeth. But shallow entry meant he was compromised coming into turn 12. And, yeah, 3 wide was it was not ideal. With all this battling, Dion Stahl has gained about a second or 2 on this group of 4. So Dion still a chance to improve on the points. He does have a penalty hanging over him, but we'll see what happens. As you say, it certainly looks like if there's going to be an incident on track, we're looking at it.
All right, a little bit of separation right now between these 4 drivers. Van Gelder a little bit closer to Ventic than... Oh my goodness. Noel is to Nick Van Gelder. I don't know. Somewhere along the line, Nick decided he was going to put in the Monaco steering rack for this race. And he's just got finding all this opposite lock to keep this car straight.
his forearms have to be burning at this point. Just every time through sector 1, he's going in sideways.
Yeah, Nick, like most of our drivers, not all of them, but most of them do have a rig, and Nick is one of those guys. He's got a rig at home. It's pretty good, very professional setup. But yeah, he's got to be sweating bullets right now. I know a lot of these guys. I know Nick has complained in the past after a race like this that his shoulders will hurt. I know Sanders had a couple of times where he's been a little worn out after a race. You see Tim Ventic there make a little bit of a mistake going into that corner very deep, went a little wide. It allows Nick to catch back up. And now Nick's all over the back of him as they head through the chicane.
Yeah, Venting going into an area that was off track. That's going to cool the tires quite a bit in a short amount of time. So right now, Van Gelder's tires should have an advantage.
Oh, caution flag flying in sector 2. I don't know who that was for.
That was Dion Stahl in the chicane.
Oh, he was catching these guys too.
He's able to drive it. Sounds like some tire spin there, but...
Caution flag flying in sector 1. Looks like that might have been a quick on-off. Watching Nick's car, I don't know what kind of brake bias he's running, but he is locking up those rear wheels, getting into some of these corners.
Well, the rain starting to let up is kind of the impression I'm getting just visually.
Yeah, the actual downfall of the rain looks like it's starting to let up, but there's still a ton of standing water. But this is kind of what we talked about. Bune switched over to the intermediates, and maybe they'll come to life. 5 laps to go in this race. Meanwhile, Jensen Randall, Jensen Hamilton, Jensen Verstappen, he's out in front by 17 seconds. Nicolo Falzarezzi running in second. Sandro Dulios with a solid run in the third today. Oleski's running in fourth. George Wilkes solidly running in fifth. What we've been watching is this battle for sixth that has gone on for about 10 laps now. Between Tim Ventic, Nick Van Gelder, Noel, and Boer Bune, all running 6th, 7th, 8th, and 9th. Now the question becomes, how fast does the track dry out, and is there a switch over to intermediates, or is there a switch over to softs at some point?
Yeah, it's tough because it's about 5 laps to go now. A little more than 5, but less than 6, so it is an interesting question. I think for this group of 4 we've been watching, whoever blinks first is going to kind of ripple through the rest of the drivers in this battle. But for someone like Jensen Randall, I don't think there's going to be a switchover unless he really wants that fastest lap, as I see Tim Venting with a little bit of oversteer there.
And you can see Tim and Nick are searching for the heavy puddles, try and keep those tires cool, get as much traction as they can. Boer Bune, the only driver on track on the intermediates, and the rain is starting to let up. He's starting to gain a little bit of time here on Noel and find a little bit of grip. Hasn't been able to take the position back, but meanwhile, Tim's been able to separate himself just a little bit from Nick, so not the nose-to-tail argy-bargy that we've been watching for the last 10 laps.
Well, we'll see what Nick does coming into turn 11, because this is where the action's been.
And Boer Bune making the move on Noel. Ducks back in. Ivan Brito's retired from the session. Virtual safety car is out. Does anybody take advantage and possibly dive into the pits?
On board with Peter Nickel, but even Brito's car has despawned. It was, yet again, the exit of turn 2 and turn 3, right here where the safety car is. Looks like you just...
And Sandro's taking the gamble. Sandro's diving into the pits.
There. So he may be able to get out in front of Koivuniemi.
So he's going to switch over to a fresh set of intermediates.
I think that's a good call from Sandro, and Koivuniemi coming in too. Now Koivuniemi may not be able to cover off George Wilkes. George Wilkes coming around, but he'll also...
Oh, George Wilkes is going to dive in as well.
So the longer we get into
And
this,
here comes Tim Ventic. Oh, everybody's coming in. Tim Ventic, Nick Van Gelder, Noel Bune, who was already out on the intermediates.
Yeah, so it says BSC, but you saw there with Sandro Dulis coming around. The safety car is there waiting for race leader Jensen Randall. So this is going to be an actual safety car, despite what you see on screen. So now, you know, Jensen Randall and Nicola Falzaresi, now if they want to pit, they are in danger of losing positions here. So we'll see what they do, but it's certainly getting drier out there.
I don't think it'll be much of an issue with them. I mean, 22 seconds back to Falzaresi, plus you have to stay within the safety car delta, even though you're not necessarily behind the safety car.
Go on board with Jensen. He is going into the pit lane. So yeah, he should be fine coming out. Nicola Falzaresi coming around turn 17, I expect, with Jensen going in, so will he.
So we're going to have ourselves a little bit of a... Depending on how quickly this gets re-racked, we might only have like a 2 or 3 lap shootout. I don't think this game is capable of finishing under yellow.
So sometimes fresher tires at the end of a race like this is a big advantage. With inters, I don't know that 1 lap is going to make a difference with only maybe 4 laps to go and 2 of those racing laps. So I almost wonder if maybe Sandro Dulis and Coiviniemi can get the tires slightly more locked in than Jensen Randall and Falzaresi. But that huge gap Jensen Randall had, I mean, he had 18, 20 seconds in full wet conditions that he was able to get, starting from the back, and all that for naught.
Well, and we know Falzaresi, Jensen Randall, obviously the faster driver, a little bit more methodical in his race pace. Falzaresi, super aggressive. He's going to throw everything he's got at Jensen to try and take that position. And Sandro, as much as I don't like Alan Prost in real life, Sandro is much like him. He's very precise in what he's going to do. Sandro will probably just bide his time. Not so much attack for second or first, but probably try to defend third because he knows he's not as fast as Falzaresi or Jensen Randall.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think for Sandro, he knows the battle here is with Coiviniemi. After this race, they will be 3 and 4 in the driver's standings. Neither really has a realistic chance of catching Nicola Falzaresi for P2 in the driver's standings. So I think if you're Sandro, you are here to battle Coiviniemi for the rest of the race.
And Robin Herterstegen picks up a 5-second time penalty for ignoring a yellow flag under the safety car. Robin Herterstegen currently running in the 12th position, so that's inconsequential to his finishing position. So started with 14 drivers, lost 2. Lost Ivan Brito is the most recent safety car. Senna Haywire brought out a virtual safety car earlier in the race. Jensen Randall is your leader as we circulate under the safety car, followed by Nicola Falzaresi. Sandro Dulis running in 3rd. Oleski is running in the 4th position. George Wilkes, been quiet most of the day, solid running in 5th. Tim Ventic, your Season 5 champion, is 6th. Nick Van Gelder, your Season 4 champion, is 7th. Noel is 8th. Boer Bune, who I thought would have been able to stay out on the intermediates through this, would have picked up a couple of positions, but he's currently running in 9th. And Dion Stahl is currently running in 10th, but has a couple of timing penalties on top of that, so he's in threat of losing that position to Peter Nickel in the 11th spot. So safety car. Yeah, it looks like we're probably only going to have a 1 or 2 lap shootout to determine who's going to win this race.
Yeah, it's going to take quite a bit of time for all the cars to queue up. I mean, you saw Robin Herterstegen still kind of even with Jensen Randall just a few seconds ago, so he's going to have to get all the way around. Still quite a few drivers in Sector 1 coming around Turn 3, so I think we'll have this lap of a safety car and maybe one more before we get to full racing conditions again.
It might just have a lap shootout, which could determine everything. Yeah, we said it earlier, small car count, short on cars does not mean short on action, and the midfield battle today has been unbelievable. I know the game will easily give Jensen Randall the driver of the day from starting in the back, working his way to the front. But so many drivers today have had good drives. George Wilkes has had a great drive. Sandro has had a great drive. The battle for 6 between Tim, Nick, Borbune, Noel, I mean, it has been unbelievable. This has been probably my favorite race that I've done since coming back late in the season. And the safety car is going to come in this lap. So we are going to have a 2-lap shootout. And not even all the cars are...
Yeah.
I mean...
Dion Stahl caught out there. I think he'll be able to catch up on this straight, but...
I mean, Dion should be at full speed catching these guys.
But then I'll have to be careful, you know, we don't get, as you mentioned earlier, you alluded to the Lance Stroll Ricardo situation. So Dion coming in full throttle, he's going to have to slow it down here.
Lance Stroll.
He does catch up.
Gives guys like me a bad name. Lance.
All right, we are racing again. Jensen Randall, there's going to be 2 laps of full racing, everyone on fresh inters for the most part.
Oh, and Oleski immediately tries to get to the inside of Sandro. Sandro goes defensive and tries to cut him off, but Oleski's going to get to the inside of him going into turn 1. Oh, and they make contact!
Sandro!
Oh, no!
Oh, Sandro and George Wilkes, 2 drivers who had a great race to this point.
Oh, and a 5-second time penalty on top of that, and that might get looked at, but honestly, it kind of looked a lot like a racing incident.
I think so. I think Koivuniemi and Sandro just side-by-side coming into a quick left-right. Obviously, Sandro did not cause a collision with George Wilkes. There's not much Sandro could do. But I think you're right. I think racing incident for that one.
Meanwhile, that moves Oleski up into 3rd. Tim Ventic is running in 4th, and right behind him is Nick Van Gelder. So, the battle between the former series champions, Tim Ventic, Season 5 champ, Nick Van Gelder, your Season 4 champ. These guys have been showing why they are former champions today, for sure. Here in this 2-lap shootout, Sandro's, it's just really disappointing for Sandro. Solidly running in 3rd position. Oleski got the jump on him at the restart. Side-by-side action in turns 1, 2, and 3, and he gets spun around and gonna ride along with Nick there, see if he can make this move on Tim Ventic heading down the back straightaway. Whoa, and he locks up the front wheels. And these guys are actually within striking distance of Oleski, so starting the final lap, a couple of spots still up for grabs.
Yeah, Faltarezzi within a second of Jensen Randall, so great restart for
Whoa, and
Jensen
Nick Van
Randall.
Gelder just lost the back end of his car. Maintains the 5th position, but that allows Noel to close the gap up to him.
As we are on the final lap, I'll stay with Jensen Randall and Nicolo Faltarezzi. Nico will need to capitalize on a mistake by Jensen Randall in front to have a shot. Jensen Randall's not really known for making any mistakes, though.
And deeper in the field, Sandro just got around Dion Stahl for the 9th position. As I continue to watch this battle for 6, Nick Van Gelder trying to hold off Borbune and Noel. Noel in the Alfa Romeo, Borbune in the Haas.
Our race leader is about to come up on Robin Hertzstadhagen on the main straight. The last chance for Nicolo Faltarezzi to get something done here against Jensen Randall, but Jensen Randall looking like another win in SRL.
And Borbune with a 3-second time penalty. Oh, Nick just clipped the wall. Oh, and Nick's got, looks like he might have end plate damage on his front wing. That might have been due to hitting the wall, or he hit the wall due to the front wing damage.
Well, coming around turn 18, it's going to be Jensen Randall. Yet another win for SRL, Season 9 and Round 21 at Miami. Last to finish yet again, even in the rain, makes it look easy. Nicolo Faltarezzi, the Italian driver, in the P2, and the teammate of Jensen Randall, Koivuniemi, P3.
And George Wilkes recovers, finishing 8th. Sandro Dulius right behind him. And he gets another 5-second time penalty for unserved. I'm sure some of that will be calculated at the end of this race. Dion Stahl is going to come across in the 10th and final position. Meanwhile, Peter Nickel not the day he wanted. Going to be finishing in 11th, and Robin Herterstegen. Good on Robin. I'll say this about Robin Herterstegen. He always manages to finish the race. Doesn't matter if he's 2 seconds behind or 2 minutes behind. There's no quit in him. He does not forfeit.
Damage. Yeah, clearly damage early on from Robin Hertzstadhagen, so he quickly had a long pit stop, was 20 seconds, 30 seconds back just in the first couple laps. But you're right, he's getting the reps in, stayed in there. Had sort of a weird incident we've seen with the McLaren and the safety car before, where I think it was early in the season, Freya Balai and the McLaren just was not allowed to pass the safety car to get back on the lead lap. And I don't know if that happened to Robin Hertzstadhagen too, but an exciting race, a fun race, as Robin Hertzstadhagen finally crosses start-finish, and another win for Jensen Randall.
So Jensen Randall, last to first challenge once again. Nick Van Gelder, driver of the day. I'll take
100%.
it.
I agree.
I will take it.
Nick Van Gelder is 100% my driver of the day. The most entertaining drive I've seen all season. I don't know how he kept it on track, let alone was able to kind of sneak in, it feels like, a P5. Part of that was the battle between Koivuniemi, Dulis, and Wilkes on the penultimate lap that really opened the door for Nick to get in. But 100% driver of the day for me, Nick Van Gelder.
So Jensen Randall, your winner once again. He's already locked up the championship for the third time in his tenure with SRL, so three-time series champion. You see Oleski up there as well. So unofficial results, Jensen Randall, your winner, Nicolo Falzarezzi second, Oleski third, Tim Ventic fourth, Nick Van Gelder is fifth, Noel is sixth, Borbune seventh, George Wilkes is eighth, Sandro Dulius ninth, and Dion Stahl is 10th. Peter Nickel was 11th, Robin Herterstegen was 12th. Ivan Brito and Senna Haywire are both with DNFs, unfortunately. And I mind you that these are unofficial results. Some things could change. Doubtful, though, but be sure to check us out on Instagram, SRLF1, to keep up with all the news, notes, and updates. Like, subscribe, and comment to the YouTube channel. Check us out on Tuesday when the highlight reel comes out.
And then Suzuka next week, one of my favorite tracks. I'm excited. The last two rounds coming up for SRL, my two favorite tracks in the calendar. It's going to be Suzuka, Interlagos. I'm excited. We'll catch you next week right here at the same time on Saturday for the Suzuka Japanese Grand Prix.
I'm Kamikaze Fox. This is the Cat Chiropractor. We will see everybody at the next round.